Hi everyone, welcome. I'm preparing to check in on the red wiggler worms of mine that I affectionately refer to as my original red wigglers. And these little guys have been in service, at least in these tubs here, for the past 57 days. So these systems are not even 2 months of age quite yet. They're probably due for a feeding because it's been 12 days since we last checked in on these little guys. And I can already see things that appear to be leftovers. The last feeding was pumpkin, and we even went so far as to not only feed them the pumpkin, the fleshy parts, but we also had a couple pumpkin stems. So each system was fed a pumpkin stem in addition to just the regular pumpkin. 12 days later, I'm seriously doubting we would see any leftovers of the actual pumpkin. One of these pumpkin stems, and I don't remember which it was, but one of them was actually delivered into the worm bin as having a chunk of the pumpkin, vegetable still attached to it, which has clearly been nibbled away. So much so that you can't even tell which of these stems was the one that had all the pumpkin stuck to it. Besides pumpkin, we also had a couple other things. That's so cool. I don't know why. Like, I flipped it over and it felt like it was an eye. I don't know. Just seems like an eye looking at you, in a way. An eye with worms coming out of it. No, we're not feeding the worms eyeballs. This is half of an avocado. And I just sort of had the entire avocado in my hand. It was frozen. I chopped it in half using a saw so that I'd be able to cut through this really tough seed as well. So we got the outer skin, we got the meaty portion that people eat, and then we got even got the seed inside. And that was kind of a little treat to see it that way, because usually, wow, look at that. Usually somehow, for some reason, I don't know why, avocados in my systems don't seem all that popular. But look at this one. This is the kind of response a person would expect when they feed avocado, right? Or maybe they're still just going after whatever leftover pumpkin was over there. So yeah, I kind of had a suspicion that today's feeding would be an interesting one because of the yummy stuff they got last time. Not the type of feeding where you're going to see any leftover pumpkin. Perhaps the thin skin of a little bit of the pumpkin might be encountered, but other than that, all the yummy pumpkin fruit, fleshy part of the vegetable, after 12 days, especially since it was first frozen, so as soon as that stuff started thawing out, it probably just turned to mush, and then the worms were able to just come by and scoop that stuff up and pretty much drink the stuff down. It's probably just goo. This just seems like little bits of newspaper, some bedding that would have been used as part of one of our previous feedings. The bedding I was going to deliver today was going to be a little bit interesting, a little bit different. Because you know me, I'm always looking to do things a little differently. This is the pit or seed out of a mango. That too, it was cut in half right through there, so the inside would be exposed, similar to the avocado. And I threw half in here, half over there. So we got very similar feedings getting applied here. I was just kind of trying to size up the depth of the material in here in general. It's not terribly deep, and you don't really want it to be very deep, but the way that I wanted to deliver today's food, as I was about to start explaining earlier, was by putting the food into these really tough bags. One of the bags contained flour, and the other bag contained sugar, and they usually make these bags super tough. So you could probably drop it, and then you wouldn't end up with a whole big pile of sugar or flour flying around, because the bag would probably be tough enough to withstand being dropped like that. And I wondered, is it tough enough to withstand the onslaught of worms trying to get at a pile of delicious foods that we put into the bags for them? So that was my idea. So before I show you what we're feeding today, this is a whole pear, an entire pear that we bumped into last time. It was a leftover already last time, so it probably went back 2 feedings. And just makes me wonder, did we miss the pear in here? It must be in here. Perhaps we'll encounter it before we get done here. So really quick, those bags, those super tough bags, I thought I would try to stuff them with some of this stuff. And there's a lot of stuff here to stuff with. So why don't we try that now, because I believe, well, I hope we've created openings down here in each of these systems large enough to accommodate a really tough bag loaded with all kinds of yummy foods. So let's see, why don't we do it this way? I could use my soiled, whoops. Okay, I can see this is going to lead to trouble. My idea was to be able to use my clean hand to hold the bag and use my soiled hand to shovel in food. Here's the crust of a pizza pie. Let's get the banana peel. Let's get these larger objects in first, and all the rest of the stuff just seems like shavings of carrots and cuttings from celery, and it appears to me like the bits and pieces of what might have made up a soup at one point. And I guess it's a little bit awkward because the hole on this bag at least is pretty puny. I mean, I got a really big one here. Big, huge bag that sugar was in, but I've only got one of the really big ones and I had two of the small ones, so that's how the small ones came into play here as the lunch bags. Here too, I think these might be the leaves of leeks or something. So these look like perhaps some soup that my mom made and then handed off all these cuttings to me. I'm just trying to size up how much of the food stash we've stuffed into bin number 1's lunch bag, and it seems to me like we've probably used up about half. So we'll leave it at this for the first bag, and yeah, we're going to be almost coming up to the surface on this one. Let's get the food bag for bin number 2 set up as well. Let's see how that goes as far as quantity of stuff. Stuff is all frozen, so my assumption is that as it thaws, it's going to begin emitting a good bit of moisture, dampening the bag all the way around. Probably not dampening it to the point where worms would be able to just nibble their way through it, or maybe they can. I don't know. I hope that they can. But just in case they can't, I wasn't really intending to kind of close off the end. I did want the end to be just open in case that is the only way that they can gain access. Let them get in at it, even if they can't come in through the sides. And we've got a little bit of stuff remaining in here. Some more carrot peels, some leaves of this and that. So it does seem to me like a pretty nice assortment of all kinds of yummy stuff that the worms are probably going to enjoy feasting on. So let's try getting this one in here too. Once again, makes me question whether we've got enough material to cover up with. But you know what? I guess the nice thing about this is that just by its nature, it's covered up. Even if we didn't put any backfill over this, we've got just a paper cover, right? So that's kind of cool in its own right. But before we backfill our feeding zone, let's reassemble our magic eye, and then we can return all the old foods that they are still working on. I'm sure that there's a pear. There's the pear. We found the pear in bin number 2. The pear in bin number 1 is probably nearby. I might have just been going a little bit too quick and skimmed past it. Or maybe we'll encounter it and it'll be surrounded by worms, having a little pear party. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I mean, I sometimes add grit, sometimes add coffee. I do have those things, but sometimes I also like to deviate from my standard procedures just for the sake of deviating and not getting into some sort of a rut. So perhaps today we'll just make the one quirk of today's feeding be the the thick bags in which we delivered today's food. The bag, I guess, will be the bedding for this feeding. And as far as moisture goes, I'm pretty sure that between just the fairly damp bin itself contributing moisture to the system underneath the top coverings of plastic, all that veggie matter as it starts to thaw is going to emit a good bit of moisture. So I think the feeding zone is going to be a real hot spot for worm activity, with a bunch of frozen veggies starting to thaw out and melt and become really easy to eat, and at the same time also just spewing out some of their moisture content into the nearby materials, making it almost into like a little wormy paradise. I did notice that our top coverings of paper just didn't want to come dislodged from our plastic coverings. And over here in bin number 2, it seems like our top covering of newspaper came loose pretty easily. We don't have any coffee to feed today. I mean, I do have some coffee, as I mentioned earlier, but we're not feeding coffee today, so I don't have the filters from the coffee to use as feeding zone indicators. But I've just got this funny feeling that the next time we come back here, there's going to be some clear evidence of where the last feeding had been. It'll probably be in the form of a big crater in the middle of the bin where the worms have worked down a lot of what we gave them here today. This piece of newspaper here, bin number 1, seems to also be holding together pretty good. However, in the middle of it, it looks like it took on a little bit of abuse from worm traffic. So I've just got this funny feeling that the next time we come in here, these are not going to get reused as top covering newspaper. They're most likely going to become supplementary bedding with our next feeding. So that's it for the check-in, everyone, with our now 57-day-old red wigglers, the original red wigglers, getting feeding number 6 today after 12 days since the last check-in. All I've really got left to do here is to clean things up and put things away, but I'm not going to waste your time with that. That's boring. Before I go really quick, let me just say thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.